afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The next briefing is weekly updates from the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission in Ukraine about security situation in eastern Ukraine. And I give the floor to Mr. Alexander Hook, Principal Deputy Chief Monitor of the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine.
Good afternoon. It has taken longer than we expected, but the inevitable has happened. Last week, the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission registered a 63% increase in the number of ceasefire violations. In all, over 6,500 ceasefire violations were recorded by the OSCE SMM. There was a fourfold increase in the number of SMM recorded instances in which weapons that should have been withdrawn were used. Among them were 86 instances in which multiple launch rocket systems were used. And not surprisingly, the SMM recorded more of these weapons in violations of agreed withdrawal lines. In total, last week, the OSCE SMM observed 84 weapons in violation, 74 in areas not controlled by the government, and 10 in areas controlled by the government. Here, in this image taken by a OSCE SMM long-range unmanned aerial vehicle on 1st of August, you can see 3 self-propelled howitzers near non-government controlled Koroshe. Another 5 howitzers are nearby, out of the frame. Near Bilahora, an area controlled by the government, an SMM long-range UAV the previous day spotted 3 self-propelled howitzers, all in violation of withdrawal lines agreed by the sides in Minsk. Among the 74 weapons observed in areas not controlled by the government, 32 were multiple launch rocket systems. Here in this image taken by an SMM UAV on 30th July, you can see 6 of those MLRS in non-government controlled Krustalny. This graph gives the information on weapons in violation we have collated over the past 6 weeks. Non-compliance, as you can see, is widespread on both sides of the contact line. Dear friends, the level of violence is now approaching levels seen before the recommitment to the ceasefire. On one particular day last week, on 30th of July, over 1,700 ceasefire violations were recorded, significantly higher than the daily average for the week immediately before the ceasefire recommitment. Then it was about 1,270. The slow return to violence took longer than usual. There have been 12 recommitments to the ceasefire over the past 3 years. On average, it took 2 weeks for pre-recommitment levels of violence to return. As you can see on this graph, showing the daily ceasefire numbers for a month before and after the 1st of July recommitment, the recommitment initially showed promise, but after a month it has begun to fade like all other recommitments before. Behind these figures there are real people. Every ceasefire violation has the potential to kill and injure. Instead of 0 civilian casualties, which all sides agree should be the norm, the number of civilian casualties continues to rise. So far this year, we have confirmed 31 civilians have been killed and 137 have been injured. In total, 168 civilian casualties. Dear friends, those who agreed to the recommitment may have been sincere, but the required measures to make the recommitment real were not taken. Since 1st July, the OSCE SMM has, for example, seen 360 weapons in violation of agreed withdrawal lines, 273 of them in areas not controlled by the government. We have noted that the sides have not disengaged. In fact, quite the opposite. Last week, for example, we actually noted new trenches and positions inside the Solote disengagement area. And neither have they demined. The reality behind the failure to demine and remove explosive remnants of war was particularly grim in Horlivka for 2 boys aged 7 and 11 and their grandmother. Last week we confirmed that all 3 of them had been injured when a hand grenade exploded. 2 teenagers were recently killed near Horlivka when a landmine exploded on 25th July. Of the 168 civilian casualties this year, 59 were from mines or unexploded ordnance, 17 killed, 42 injured. Dear friends, as the ceasefire violations increase, the blame game has already started. Media reports suggest that 3 people were this week killed in an area not controlled by the government in southern Donetsk region. We in the SMM establish facts because facts matter. If this conflict is to end, it will be ended by people making clear, rational decisions, people armed with an understanding of what is happening on the ground, people with the facts. But we have been unable to establish the facts surrounding the alleged incident. We have been unable to verify that another 3 people have been killed, their lives pointlessly taken, 2 medics and an ambulance driver apparently, who will never again be in a position to save lives because someone took theirs. We cannot do this because the armed formations generally refuse to allow us access to this area. The limited access granted so far has yielded no information. Last week, I and colleagues from the OSCE SMM, for instance, tried to enter the town of Novoazovsk in southern Donetsk region. We wanted to go there to monitor the security and humanitarian situation. Instead, we were stopped outside the town. We waited for over 5 hours while other civilians passed freely. For 5 hours, instead of facts, all we heard were excuses. And now with this alleged security incidents, we hear more excuses, more blame games, more shifting of responsibility. Instead of allowing the OSCE SMM to establish facts, instead of ensuring our safe and unfettered access everywhere in Ukraine, including to areas of southern Donetsk region not controlled by the government. Certain people are blaming the SMM for not reporting, for not establishing the facts surrounding the alleged incidents, for not doing its job. The same people who prevent us doing our job accuse us of not doing our job. The same people who recommitted to the ceasefire are the ones desperately looking around for scapegoats, desperately trying to shift the blame, playing with the facts, telling people that it is someone else's responsibility to cease fire. Let's be clear. It is the responsibility of the sides to ensure and grant safe and unfettered access for SMM monitoring officers and all civilians to all parts of Ukraine, just as it is the responsibility of the sides to cease fire. It is their responsibility to make the ceasefire real, to disengage, to demine, to withdraw weapons, to ensure no more children are injured or killed. They agreed to it. They signed the Minsk agreements. They promised they would end this madness. Dear friends, 500 ceasefire violations last week is 6,500 broken promises. 168 lives destroyed this year, either killed or injured, is 168 times that the sides have failed to take responsibility. This latest recommitment to the ceasefire, the 12th we have seen over the past 3 years, is 12 times the sides have wasted an opportunity for peace. How many more times must people in eastern Ukraine wait? How many more wasted opportunities before there is a real sustainable ceasefire? How many more lives must be lost before life is respected? Before peace is restored? We in the OSCE SMM remain, as ever, ready and able to assist the sides if they truly recommit to the ceasefire. Ready and able to verify the sides' compliance with the ceasefire agreement they signed. If they allow us to do so, if they stop preventing us from doing our job. We are waiting for them to comply. People in eastern Ukraine, all over Ukraine, are waiting for them to comply. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hook. It's time for questions. Dear colleagues, if you have questions, you're welcome to ask them.
Crimean News Agency, and my question relates to the Russian spy scandal surrounding the SMM. SMM reported that you addressed the German TV channel to provide additional information and the materials or documents they've got. Can you please tell us, have you received any response from this TV channel, and what are the details of this scandal?
Thank you. It is indeed true that we have asked the ARD TV channel to provide us with more details for us to be able to look more in detail into the allegations they have made in their broadcast. We have previously informed that in the meanwhile we have initiated the process of a fact-finding mission. These are standard procedures which robust measures in the OSCE framework have foreseen. We will keep you updated at this point. At the moment, we have no further information to add. Should there be any new developments, we would of course make sure that you will be informed. Thank you.
Thank you. More questions? Yeah.
I would like to clarify whether does it mean that the TV channel has not provided any response to you?
Thank you. I can't speak on behalf of the TV channel. You would have to ask them directly. We have made it very clear to them that we would require further details than the information they have shown in the broadcast itself. You have seen their broadcast and you have seen some of the documents there. That's as much as we have seen thus far. If there are any new developments, we would certainly make sure that it be kept updated.
Thank you. If there is no more questions, let's finish. Thank you, Mr. Hook.
Thank you.